Hey guys, it's James R. Nowlin. I'm an out boss and LGBT business owner.
Hello, Out Bosses. Rhodes Perry here, and welcome to this week's episode of The Out Entrepreneur, a weekly podcast where I get to interview today's most inspiring LGBTQ bosses crushing it in business. I am so excited to be interviewing James R. Nowlin, who is joining us after 3 years, three years and maybe a month. So James, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Rhodes.
Yeah. So if folks aren't familiar with James and you weren't listening to The Out Entrepreneur 3 years ago, he is a millennial, a miraculous near-death drowning survivor, and first-generation college graduate. He has been humbled by triumph as well as tragedy. Today, James is the CEO of Excel Global Partners, a financial information technology and management consulting firm, which received national recognition in 2015 as the NGLCC's, that's the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce's National Business of the Year. That's awesome. That's so awesome. So James dedicates a significant portion of his time to executive coaching, teaching wellness methods in the workplace, and leadership development. James, wow, we have so much to cover. The last time you were on the show, so this was in April of 2017, the book hadn't even come out. So your book, The Purposeful Millionaire, 52 Rules for Creating a Life of Wealth and Happiness Now, was about to be launched. And this was a big deal. So talk to us a little bit just to get a sense of, over these past 3 years, how has the book changed the way that you approach life? How has the book changed the way that you approach business?
So Rhodes, writing the book brought out so much consciously for me. And, it was more than just becoming an author and being able to speak on stage about my experience in business and my childhood and growing up and actually achieving a dream that I had. It was the person that I became in the actual process of writing the book. And I found myself healing in so many ways that I became much more intentional in my purposefulness in my business, my life affairs. And I looked at my business and I said, well, are we stretching ourselves too thin? What is our growth plan? Is our growth plan just to grow? Or is our growth plan to surround ourselves with the best clients, with the best employees, and the best fit opportunities? And there was a winnowing down period of reflecting and saying, hey, we're going after this opportunity, but it's not a good fit. Or we're moving in that direction, but that's not in the best alignment for our value system for our company or for the mission that we actually have. And I found myself going back and reading my book, rereading the actual words that I'd written, and realizing this is my truth. This is my essence. And I live this on a daily basis. And if I execute upon the 52 rules that are in this book, the truth that I wrote, I'm going to continue to build and grow, but in a fashion that's in best alignment with me and who I am as a person and my value system.
That is very powerful. And it's one of those things too that sometimes when you're writing, right, like you're getting more clear on your purpose, right? Like, and it's through that process. And something that you had shared with me before, when we weren't recording, was this feeling of channeling something that was coming through you. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that that's a really powerful experience as someone who is a writer.
Yeah, so each day I had the same routine. I would wake up at the same time every morning. I would do my meditations. I would do my yoga. I would work out, and then I would move directly into the most creative time of the day, in which my brain had the highest amount of plasticity, that ability to learn and to channel and to be creative before doing all the other difficult tasks. So when I would sit at my desk and when I would type or when I write out an outline or try to figure out what I would say, sometimes there was just this amazing force that just took over. And I found myself putting things on the paper that when I go back and look at them, I think, wow, how did that happen? And the only way that I can attribute that to anything is to say, hey, I was channeling a force that was greater than myself. And during my writing time, I realized that, hey, I'm having a lot of fun doing this because there was such this powerful centeredness and this growth period that I was going through and this healing that I was going through that I was having so much fun. And so now when I have a project that I'm working on or or I'm working on a big goal, one of the first things that I'll do is I'll try to emulate that process in which I sat down and had that morning routine and ritual to write the book and actually channel energy. And that energy wasn't coming from James, the physical body. It was coming from a spiritual place that is quite ineffable, indescribable for me to even talk about, because when you're in great alignment, things become really, really easy. When you're out of alignment, when you're not centered, you got to force yourself to sit there. You got to sweat out the hours. You got to try to pull words out your ass and make stuff sound right. And it's just work, 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 work. But writing that book for me was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun. And it was anchored in a spiritual connectivity and a new life and a new light channeling through me.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. And I'm wondering for you, what surprised you most from the readers and how they responded to what you were able to channel and put on paper?
Wow. Great question. I'm just humbled that even 3 years later, Rhodes, I still get fan mail. I got a letter from a CEO the other day, and he said, the first couple of chapters of your book were some of the most exciting pages that I've ever read. And I find myself not able to put your book down. And one of the things that people tell me again and again when I'm speaking on stage or coaching or working with the group or board of directors or working with the CEO is that, James, we appreciate your truth and your vulnerability. I believe that I practice what I preach. I believe in what I say, but also there's that imperfection element of my sharing with folks. This is what I've gone through. These are the challenges that I've had, and I don't want you to make the same mistakes that I've made. And with that humility, they can say, when I'm reading James's work or when I'm hearing James speak, I am seeing myself and I'm hearing myself and I understand and I get it and I'm learning in this process. And that's so just magnificently humbling to me to hear that regularly from fans of the book and fans of my work.
That absolutely, the opening pages for you to share such a personal, scary, tragic story, that got me from the beginning of like, who is this person? And the storytelling is just so, for what I thought was just a business book, right? It's so not that at all. And I really would encourage folks, if they're not familiar with your book, to absolutely pick it up, because it offers a really solid blueprint of living life and living life in the ways that you want to create it in a really intentional way. And I thank you for doing that. It is not easy to write a book. It's a very vulnerable experience, and especially adding so many personal details about your own story. It's clear that you are a lifelong learner, right? And that you're always, testing, changing, iterating, and adapting. We as business owners are going through some really challenging times right now. And I'm wondering for you, just to hear your take on thinking about your businesses, because you have several, right? How are you surviving this feeling of winter, going through lean times? How are you pointing positive to get to those better days and maybe changing the way things have always been done? Because that's what it seems like these moments are requiring all of us to do.
Mm-hmm. Rhodes, these kinds of moments bring out the very best in us, or they can bring out the very worst in us. And early on, my husband and I said, what do we want to look like? Who do we want to be? How do we want to feel when this is all behind us and we're living in a new world, a fundamentally new world? And we sat down with clear intentionality and said, we will not move forward in business in fear. We will not move forward in our relationship in fear. We're going to respect science. We're going to do our best to stay healthy. We're going to do our best to keep every single one of our employees employed. And we're going to go after opportunities that we might not have gone after in the past. And we're going to shine our light as much as we can with other people. So as we saw some contract opportunities decrease, what has increased is our work focused on wellness in the workplace, spiritual healing, leadership development in a hybrid or online environment where certain CEOs and executives might not have the leadership skills necessary to work in a hybrid or an online environment in front of a computer 12 hours a day, communication skills, and so on. And so we put ourselves out there and said, hey, we've been running our company virtually for the past 3 years. Let us help you to run your company virtually now, regardless of its size. You might have 1,000 employees or 20,000 employees. That doesn't matter. What we're helping people to do now is to show up as we take a step back and say, hey, we've got all these stressors on us, and we are trying to navigate in an unpredictable world, one that has been deconstructed from our original construction of going into the office every day and getting on airplanes and traveling and having the kids at school and being able to get work done, to creating a life for us that works and helping other people to do the same while building upon new leadership skills in new ways. And so that's lent itself to some growth opportunities in the business. And it's lent itself to some growth opportunities within myself too, because I get to look at my business as I coach other people's businesses and say, James, you are practicing what you're preaching, or today was not your best day, but tomorrow you're going to be even better. So get back on it, get out there, help people to heal and to build their companies, and do your best, because these are really, really unpredictable times. So that when you get thrown off, you got to get right back on the wagon.
It's so powerful in the way that you're talking about, instead of moving from a place of fear, moving from a place of faith. And it reminds me of, and how you're thinking about your businesses right now. Tony Robbins often says, there's two things that make up a business: one, innovation, and two, marketing. And it's clear that you're finding opportunities in this moment. Something else that he says is that, we as business owners shouldn't fall in love with our products and services. We should fall in love with those that we serve, our clients, our customers. And I'm wondering, from your perspective, what are some of the ways that you're building a strong sense of trust and loyalty between your business and those that you're serving right now?
Mm-hmm. For me, it's taking a step back and saying, does my why make me cry? And looking back on the 14 years of growth in this company, where we've got employees in 3 or 4 different countries and in different states, and we've worked in about probably 15 different countries and in maybe 20 plus states across the US. And me always reflecting on, is my why making me cry today? And if I'm moving in a direction of lower consciousness or feeling tired, lethargic, unfocused, uncentered, it is to take the time out and to recenter and get back in line with my faith practices, my meditation, my taking times out during the day, watching what I eat, understanding that garbage in is garbage out in terms of how my body feels and how my brain feels and how creative I'm being. And that's how we're able to develop trust with these clients. We show up and we give them our best every single day. Our firm, Excel Global Partners, is a consulting firm that focuses strictly on improving the financial, the operational, and the spiritual performance of other businesses. And that kind of work can be exhausting if you let it be, because everyone else's problems are our problems. Mm-hmm. But we take ownership in other companies, but we also take ownership in ourselves and how we're showing up, because we know that sometimes when we come in, we're demonstrating for the first time this level of elevated consciousness with respect to how we navigate and coach businesses that might not have been there before. But when people experience it, they feel it, they sense the change, and often they can measure the changes financially and operationally. And often those workplaces become better places to work. And that's the reward that we get that keeps fueling us with this hard work, which is often hard work.
Hard work that is hard work. And I mean, it's clear that people are coming to you because you are exuding, this kind of higher state of consciousness. You're exuding a passion for being innovative and problem solving, solving difficult problems that so many folks inside of these businesses that are hiring you have outsourced because they've looked at it so closely for so long and can't see another way. And I love does your why make you cry? I mean, I think that you've named this episode, so thank you. But I mean, I think that's absolutely, going back to, why did you start this thing? Because running a business can be a lonely road. And for you and your husband, I mean, even running it together, I mean, it's you two together. You see this vision and where it could go, and kind of remembering, going back to what got you inspired from day one, is still kind of lighting you up and getting you out of bed every day. And that recentering is such a good reminder. One thing that I've noticed that's changed for you, knowing you over these past 3 years, is, and you're reading your book, so you're applying the principles of really, taking care of self. I mean, you've had such a transformation, and you're a very handsome, very fit guy, but, I remember you're like, I'm no longer doing sugar, and, you're eliminating some things from your diet. And really, like, it just kind of takes away that kind of foggy brain, and you're stepping more into your alignment. So I see that. So
thank you. Thank you so much.
That? Yeah.
I really feel it. And I'll tell you, it wasn't just the book, but it was my accident too, having that near-death drowning and that period of healing, and really re-examining my life under a microscope and saying, what really matters to me? How can I best show up? How can I have the most impact? How can I speak positivity in a world that is sometimes not so positive and is sometimes just hungry for light and love and encouragement and competence? And so, we started the business back in 2007. We grew it. 2012, I had my accident. It took me 2 years of healing from a brain injury to, be able to form sentences and be able to speak and, be totally independent. And then after that, it was like blast off. When you have that near-death experience that just wakes you up, you realize that you come back with a different perspective. And that is, if I can't bring my best to this earth every single day, then I probably should sit down and find something else to do. And that means that I'm doing the wrong thing. And John and I looked really, really hard at our business. And we said, how can we best serve? How can we best show up? And prior to 2012, I was growing, measuring my success on paper, extrinsic values, cars, houses, fancy vacations, sometimes flashy friends, looking at all those things. And I wasn't full on the inside. And so that's how the Purposeful Millionaire came out of this. The book's not about money. It's about having millions of dollars worth of purpose in my heart, in my consciousness, in my spirit, so that I can serve. Not about the bank account. I mean, it has some really helpful tidbits about how to establish yourself financially, how to grow your business based upon some of the spiritual work that you can do on yourself. But what it really is all about is how to find your purpose, your intention, your calling every single day that gets you out of the bed, that makes you blast off and makes you really, really proud of the work that you're doing.
Yes, I love that. And, your book was described, or you were described as the author of the book as a modern day Napoleon Hill of Think and Grow Rich, right? And it's so nice to read a book that includes those manifestation principles coming from, a community member, coming from someone. For me, I can relate to you a whole heck of a lot more than Napoleon Hill, and you make it accessible. And you're right. It's so much more than a business book, a book on how to manage your finances. It's a book on life. And if you feel something passionate in your heart and you can see it in your mind, or you can feel it, whatever the senses that you want to have access to, it helps you kind of articulate and get closer to what it is that you want to achieve, and that it is in alignment, right? That you're finding the why that makes you cry. And I really appreciate what you've contributed with your work there. I want to pivot because we're here in June of 2020, and our country is having a real reckoning with historic inequities for Black folks in particular. And a lot of businesses are struggling. And from your lived experiences, from the work that you do doing leadership development with C-suite teams, what right now do you see as an opportunity, or let me step back. What do you see as a role for businesses right now to do more? Or is there a role from your perspective?
Absolutely. Let's focus less on greed and more on growth. Growing our people, helping them to succeed, helping them to feel good about the place that they work at. I'm all for people achieving financially at high levels and doing really, really well in life, Rhodes. But at the end of the day, the real issue is, how many folks did you bring along with you? How many folks did you help develop who were coming from communities that were different from yours? How many folks were you coaching, providing opportunities for, who really wanted to do well in this organization, instead of you just focusing on the bottom line and what the shareholders are getting out of the company? We find that, in the line of work that I do with executive coaching, working with really high profile people, a lot of these people just have tons and tons of money, but they don't have tons and tons of purpose. So they're out buying more things, and they're acquiring more companies, and they're sometimes in very imbalanced relationships. And when they look in the mirror, and I do mirror work sometimes based upon one of my mentors, Louise Hay. Yes. Louise Hay said, look in the mirror, do the mirror work, and ask yourself, how do I feel about myself right now? How do I feel about myself today? Yeah. And look yourself into the eye. And some of these folks can't do that. And we live in a world in which a person is going to become a trillionaire soon. And that's a lot of money, Rhodes. I would be remiss if I were to become a trillionaire and didn't bring 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000 people along with me to help them to succeed, to build communities that are Black and brown and LGBT and women and military veterans who are dealing with PTSD and so on. There's so much opportunity for love and for growth outside of the old-fashioned financial and operational models that this country's so hungry for people who speak about this like myself, people who speak about this like you. And that's one of the things that I learned during lockdown, is that people are saying, hey, James, we need you to put more online. We need you to say more or come speak on this or that topic, because we're just so tired. We're so tired of the greed systems and the corruption systems that are serving just a small minority, less than 1% population of this world, and sometimes less than 5% of the population, based upon how you look at it in terms of wealth acquisition. Yeah. It's our time to sense that energy, to feel the frustrations of so many folks who are good folks, who wanted more, who could have done more, who were reaching for more, but sometimes had the door closed in their face more than one time. And I'm one of those folks. And I'll tell you, Rhodes, I'm 39 years old right now. But when I was 19 years old, I was falsely accused of a crime, and I became a suspect in a crime that I had no way of committing. But I was the darkest, youngest thing around, and I was shopping with my mom when it happened. And there was a felony that was committed in the parking lot of a Walmart in Lynchburg, Virginia. And I was apprehended and humiliated in front of my mother. Not only was there an investigation, but I became the lead suspect. And so my mom, a woman of faith and love, had to see her hardworking, intelligent, loving son being treated like a third-class citizen by police officers. That's the kind of world that we live in. Now, there are a lot of great police officers out there, but there's some who need training. There's some who need to sit down in classrooms led by leaders like you and me to learn more about opportunity and equity and love and kindness and meditation and consciousness work, because they're the ones with the guns and I'm the one who doesn't have the gun, and I'm the good guy. And even today, as we go through this period of social unrest and this amazing awakening that's happening globally right now with Black people and white people and brown people, some of whom I didn't think would take a knee, are actually taking a knee and saying things must change. Systems must be overhauled. So this is a consciousness realigning period. It's an awakening period. It scared me at first because I was dealing with some post-traumatic stress from my incident, and I was having flashbacks based upon me being apprehended in front of my mom 20 years ago. But I'm so excited for what the future holds, Rhodes, with respect to businesses, with respect to families, with respect to communities, and folks who've been traditionally underserved. And the corporations are the ones who can really, really drive the change with this if they stop being so greedy and start focusing on real growth. And real growth is based upon love.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing your story, because it's not easy to retell. And I think it's also a clear example of just how deeply embedded, just on an interpersonal level, unconscious bias. And it's not just that, it's built into these systems, right? And in order to dismantle them, it's going to take leadership. And that's your background. I mean, you help some of the top brands around the world with leaders solving some difficult problems. And this is a moment that requires a different type of leadership. So I'm curious, from your perspective, what kind of leadership meets this moment? Because the old ways of command and control that are built within white supremacy culture are crumbling. And I think a lot of, the work that I do, a lot of folks are calling me right now around how they respond, what they can do, and people are just trying to issue a statement. Some are trying to actually do actions. But I'm curious, like, from a leadership perspective, what are those traits that they're missing that maybe can be coached, maybe they can't? Your take.
One word: vulnerability. Mm-hmm. Vulnerability. When we get CEOs to show up with vulnerability, saying, hey, I want to see some change made, but just because I'm the CEO and I'm successful and I have a lot of money and a lot of power, that doesn't necessarily mean that my opinion or my words are right. Now, we know, Rhodes, that words are things. Words are things. You've got to get the words right when you're talking about subjects like this. I saw a number of releases when the social movement was beginning that were just not worded as well as they should have been. And the CEO or the board or the leader who was the spokesperson for that company actually had to backtrack and say, hey, we're sorry we said that, or we didn't get that right. If you take the time to listen, and if you shrink your ego and you say, hey, I want to listen, I want to learn, I want to get this right, because I'm coming at this from a position of loving and learning, we're going to have expansion, we're going to have growth, and we're going to have companies do things a lot better. But it's like in my book, I was measuring my success based upon extrinsic values, and I felt like what I was saying had to be right because I was smart, I was the one with the degrees, I was the one with the businesses, I was the one with the clients and the money. So therefore, if I put it on a piece of paper and I proofread it 3 or 4 times and have another person look at it, it's going to be right. No, that's not the right approach. We've got to spend time on these issues, and we've got to open up our hearts, and we've got to open up our minds to say, hey, I'm going to be vulnerable with you guys right now. I'm going through a learning phase, but I want my company to be better. Let's get this right together. Let's get it right together.
Yeah. Yeah. The vulnerability piece is huge, and moving at the speed of trust and healing. Healing has to happen inside organizations just as much as it has to happen for ourselves individually. And if people are moving too fast and trying to put the Band-Aids on things, we will return to this moment again and again.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I do not believe that this is a Band-Aid period.
Yeah.
We're not going through a Band-Aid period. We've had unrest. We've had micro movements before. We've had riots. We've had protests before. We've had marches before. I believe that there's a consciousness and a vibration elevation that is taking place right now. Yeah. And a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we're going to look back at 2020 and say, wow, not only did we live through that, but there was a change, this magnetic energy that was rising up in the hearts of people that we sometimes did not expect it to. And there was a shift. There was a planetary shift in consciousness. And we're going to say we're proud. And I think that we're really going to see that happen come November. And we're really going to see that happen come 2021. But right now, let's just keep doing the work. Let's keep opening minds and hearts. Let's not be impatient, because if there were no struggle, there would be no progress.
Yes. This is absolutely an awakening. And I agree with everything you said. It feels really different. I mean, I guess like kind of I'm 40, so we're around the same age, right? So I remember protests for the World Trade Organization in Seattle in 1999,
the Rodney King riots.
The Rodney King riots. Yeah, I was like 12, so I'm like living through these, like you say, micro moments, micro movements. And even in 2012, or 2014 with the rise of Black Lives Matter, I was living in New York at that point in time. And it was amazing. It was amazing. I felt in that moment like things are shifting. Now it's just, there's so much more momentum behind the organization, the movement, more folks waking up who are not Black, joining the struggle, joining the fight, using privilege in whatever ways possible. It is a movement, and I'm wondering for you, what does this movement right now make possible? Kind of zooming in, because the show is for LGBT entrepreneurs, but for LGBT folks, and in particular for LGBTQ folks who are folks of color or have other marginalized social identities, like what's happening right now? Like, what's your take on that, and how will this shift our business community in a way that we haven't seen yet?
I think first there's a tremendous energy of coming together right now that I think is just so beautiful. Black and brown and women and LGBT and underserved communities, and the list goes on and on and on, of people just coming together. I've been able to witness some marches here in Austin that have just been absolutely beautiful. Beautiful demonstrations of folks coming together in mighty, mighty ways, in spite of having a lockdown and having to wear masks and being outside on hot days. That energy is going to translate into community movements. It's going to translate into corporations looking at equity in different ways. It's going to open the hearts and minds, I believe, of a lot of folks who might not have been there, but who are getting there right now. I think that, with respect to the LGBT community, I've had so many folks reach out to me who are straight folks and white folks saying, hey, can I just talk to you for a minute? Or I didn't know. They're saying, I didn't know. Can we just have a conversation? Or, James, I saw that post that you put online about you and your mother back 20 years ago. Yeah. I didn't know. Can we talk about this? And people are sharing their stories. LGBT folks are coming together. I think that not only are we going to see people show up at the polls, but we're going to see more people running for office who are LGBT. We've got two who won their primaries in New York in districts that are near each other, men of color as well. And this is just a really, really exciting time right now. We're saying, just because I'm working on getting my rights doesn't mean that the pie is actually going to be smaller. There's a pie out there, and we all deserve our rights, whether it's Black, brown, gender, LGBT, or whatever. I think we are in the inchoate stages of an incredible hand-holding movement where we support each other like never before. We did not see this, even with some women with respect to the 2016 election, who we thought were there, but actually didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. And this is not to go too deeply into politics because it's not a political show and I'm not a big political person. But with respect to people who vote against my rights, I will speak out. And I will encourage folks who I believe are on my team and who are like-minded and who are loving and supportive of the gay community to get their asses to the polls and to make a difference. So all this being said, Rhodes, I think that for LGBT folks, it's just beautiful what's happening right now. It's just beautiful. We might not be able to go out in public and hang out and connect in the old ways that we used to, but we're connecting in consciousness. And that consciousness energy will not dissipate, hopefully for the rest of my life and for the rest of your life.
Yes.
We're going to look back on 2020 and we're going to talk about it like it was the 1960s.
Yeah.
We're going to look at 2019, 2020, 2021, the Donald Trump years and all that. All this stuff is happening for a reason. I don't hate anybody who's in leadership right now because those folks who are spewing hate, talking negatively, pushing back laws for trans people and LGBT people and Black people and, cutting this and cutting that and stacking courts with folks who only look out for themselves, that's fine for me because it's waking up thousands of people. It's waking up millions of people so we have an uprising that will serve us for decades to come. So that's why I'm excited. And that's why I'm not focused on hate or fear right now.
Yes. And it's so in alignment with you kind of creating the world that you want to live in, starting with the words that you speak and the vision that you see. And I'm with you. I mean, I really feel like this has so much opportunity for shifting the ways that things weren't working for so many of us and making it better. And we have to actively co-create that. We have to.
And honestly, Rhodes, things weren't working that well for a lot of us.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. Yeah. Brene Brown had a wonderful quote about that. Yeah. Why would anybody want to go back to the way things were when things were not working well for a lot of us? Some of us were working 2 and 3 jobs. Mm-hmm. Some of us were facing discrimination in the workplace. There were all kinds of issues. There were laws being pushed back. Healthcare was being cut. Why would we want to go back to that? Yeah. Let's capture the magic of this frustration in this moment. Let's rise up together. Let's support one another, and let's not look back, but look forward to the new normal that we co-create together.
Yes, I love that. I love that. So I have one more question for you before we have to shut things down, because I think we would be talking for all day if we could, but it's a short show. So this question is for those folks who are LGBT, they're allies, they're thinking about getting started in business. And right now, this moment is full of uncertainty. So what advice do you have for those folks thinking about getting started right now?
Don't quit your day job. And I would not have said that years ago, but don't quit your day job right now. This period is so unpredictable that if you have steady income, hold on to that steady income, and you can moonlight, you can have your side gig, do whatever you want to. In your free time, do what is the success formula in my book. Idea plus plan plus execution equals success. Spend 1% of your time on your idea, 9% of your time on your plan, the other 90% of your time on execution, and then you're going to have success. But take a step back and say, hey, I'm not going to quit my job. I'm not going to move. I'm not going to do any of those things right now, because what we know is that you can't be creative if you create much more unpredictability in your life. And so if you've got a predictable element such as your finances, where you live, and if things are going smoothly right now, know that you've had to navigate a lot over the past 3 months. Don't add additional variables into your life that create new structures of unpredictability. Keep that job, keep doing a great job at it, but get your plan in order. Get your idea in order so that you can begin executing on it while you have your job. And as the economy heals, as we move into a more predictable period, that's when you start your business or your new plan, or you acquire something, or you move in a different direction with your business. You can start a little bit of that right now, but now is not the time for massive overhauls unless the marketplace is telling you to move in that direction. And I think we've seen that happen some with your business, and we've seen that happen with my business as well. But we're established companies. And if I could go back 10 years from today, I would see scared James in so many ways, a guy who had bitten off more than he could chew. I would probably smack myself upside the head and say, why are you doing that? And you just messed up so many opportunities. But just slow down and know that there is beautiful magic in slowing down to move fast. So during this time, slow down, get things right so that you can move really, really quickly. Because if you don't get your bullseye right, you're going to spend a lot of time trying to fix stuff or trying to figure out the new marketplace of 2022 or 2023. So take this time at home, time with being able to talk with folks, to get on Zoom, to get on Skype, to get on FaceTime, to have those meaningful meetings and those more deep conversations about the life that you wish to create, and begin doing it, but don't throw additional curveballs in your way. Finally, Rhodes, I will say that your plan A should always be to focus on becoming the best version of yourself. That's your job right there. And people say, well, when you start a business, you shouldn't have a plan B. No, your plan A in that business or whatever you do or wherever you are right now is to focus on becoming the best and most enlightened and awakened and centered version of yourself. And that way you don't have to have a plan B. You don't have to have a fallback. And part of that plan A could be, I'm going to continue working at this place of employment for the next 6 months or for the next year while I achieve $10,000 in revenue with this company, or $100,000 or $1 million or whatever your goal is. And that can be packaged into your plan A, but the essence of it should be at your core, finding and grounding into that so that you can become the best demonstration of yourself from a business and a personal perspective. And that way things will come to you and you won't have to fight for them.
So inspirational. I feel like that is, I'm going to just feature that somewhere on YouTube, somewhere online for those folks getting started, because it's so wise. And the advice that you shared, it makes me think of a resource that I've mentioned on the show before for listeners is Money Tree by Chris Guillebeau, another great book. Often talking about the side hustle and having this kind of vision for what you want to create, but not jumping too soon away from steady income that's kind of keeping you afloat, and in particular during these challenging times. So check that out along with James's book. And James, where can we find you online? Where's the single best place that you'd like to direct our audience to check more of what you're offering these days?
Find me at www.jamesnowlin.com. That's Nowlin. And you can also find the book at jamesonamazon.com.
Yes, super easy. So you've got all of that, folks. Even if you're moving along and you're working out, whatever you're doing right now, really easy to find James online. So thank you so much, my friend. It's been a pleasure reconnecting with you. You've inspired me to start off my weekend in a really great state. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate all of the listeners who are tuning in right now, learning from so many smart people like James and other amazing outbosses. This is our community and we're here for each other right now. So stay strong, see that vision of a better world, and help us right now in positively co-creating it, because it's going to take all of us. And until next Tuesday, thank you so much, and keep showing up as authentically as you want in your work and in your life. All right, take care.